Hey guys, welcome back to GW36 FPL. It's Fran here, and I'm back with my GW36 team selection. So this was actually quite a tough week in terms of transfers, but I'll actually look at GW35 first because I think reviewing that week will kind of give you a little bit of my thoughts. Clearly, look at the bench. It was nice to see that Trent was rotated. Trent being rotated gives me a bit of comfort in actually keeping him this game week. I can understand a lot of people are actually moving out of Robertson this week because they have a fear that he will be rested versus Villa. As another example, I think with Salah getting rest too, I think it's a great opportunity for Salah to play these two games. It seems like he has been quite fit, and we know traditionally from looking at Salah and how many minutes he's played that whenever he gets rested, it's not really a frequent occurrence. It's a bit of a rare occurrence, and when you see the sort of fitness and the benching, then you would be quite comfortable going for Salah for the next few games, even if the FA Cup final is following the Aston Villa game. So I think there is a big, strong benefit there to having Salah in the team. And Trent, we know he'll pay dividends, especially since a lot of people are still actually continuously moving out of Trent. I understand because he is very expensive, and Robertson seems like such a good side grade, or even going down to Mata, for example, which is the frequent move for Gaming 36. But that was a positive sign. Once again, I got the kind of Sanchez Ramsdale rotation wrong. I think that Arsenal could have a chance of getting a clean sheet, especially in a game where I thought Brighton might also lose their clean sheet. I just thought Ramsdale could have some save chances versus the West Ham team. But that was not correct, and unfortunately, I have paid the price there slightly. With Harvey Barnes, he just missed out this weekend, and just once again another shocking week from Barnes as a Barnes owner. And I can't really wait to get him out of my team. And as you can see, obviously, the person who's been doing the damage to my team since Game Week 30 when I got in Barnes was the one who was just at the same price at the same time. Clearly my mistake not going for Bukayo Saka. He's had an incredible season. He's only backed it up so far. And the numbers will only be positively benefited by the fact that he's now on set pieces, which he's benefited from the Chelsea and United game. And from that point of view, I really do think it's a simple transfer to move towards Saka this week. And because I had zero in the bank going for my role there, I do actually have to think about how I move into the Saka transfer because Saka is now 6.7 and Barnes is 6.5, I believe. So someone will have to make way this week within my team. When I look at my team, clearly Dennis, he didn't actually get the haul that I expected he would versus Burnley. I thought that would be quite a good game. He had some good underlying statistics, but nothing special. And Broja, on the other hand, was someone who came off the bench for me because Barnes didn't even feature in the game. So Broja is someone who is a huge dampener, I would say, because he's only really struggled to look good as of late. His manager has actually spoken about him and said some pretty unkind things. Whereas Nketiah looks interesting from, I think, the lively perspective. Yes, he missed a key chance versus United, but I think Arteta is actually preferring to play with Nketiah within the team. He clearly provides something that I think Lacazette doesn't provide when it comes to how often he's able to press, how high he's able to press, and that I think adds a little bit of a dimension to this Arsenal attack. And I do really fancy him over Dennis this week if I really had to pick one option, even if I was to keep Dennis on. As far as Reece James, I really don't see myself moving out of James. I still think Chelsea have good games, especially on 38. I will be free hitting on 37, so nothing to touch there. It was once again a bit of a dampener to see that Mount didn't do particularly well. But I still think that he will have opportunities to do well versus Wolves and Leeds. And the main issue with Mount is I would much rather focus my transfers around Barnes. I think he's the biggest problem in my team. And then the second biggest problem is really looking for a downgrade, right, from Mount. And because Mount is so good in Game Week 38, I just can't really see when I'm thinking about the next two key weeks for this specific team, because I will be free hitting 37, that if I add the 38 kind of prospective points, whether a Mount transfer out would make sense. Because if I go into someone like a Luis Diaz or a Jota, for example, who's going to be a little bit higher in price, that's going to first of all preclude the Saka transfer unless I take a hit. And on top of that, that does mean I have to deal with the rotation of Diaz and Jota. And with Foden, I just feel like the ceiling for this week isn't particularly high because I do think he has a good chance of being rested versus Newcastle. And with Mount, I think the only downgrade that's reasonable here is probably someone like Rafinha or Madison. Madison's probably the best option because he did play versus Roma. However, I think just coming back from that hip injury, there could be a chance here where maybe Brendan Rodgers sees it as an opportunity to actually rest Madison. We've seen him do that before where in key games, especially versus weaker opponents such as Norwich, he has rested key players. And with Vardy coming back too, I think that they do have a little bit of depth to kind of accommodate for, let's say, Madison getting rest for one game. So that's kind of the fear there. All the options around Mount could be rotated just like he can for the FA Cup game. I could see also James being rotated for the Leeds game. I just still think that he is a super interesting option. He could be explosive. And I think the clean sheet versus Wolves is just there. to be honest, if he plays. And that game coming up first is going to be a big benefit, at least, getting hopefully what should be 6 points from Reece James for once, and not 0 or 1. With Van Dijk, he's actually been a constant fixture in this team, but especially with Robertson getting such a great haul, it's evident at least that he has to give way, really. I think he's a little too expensive. Clearly, Robertson justifies his price, whereas Van Dijk is someone who, unless he's scoring consistently in open play, and I don't think he is for his sort of price point, you have comparable downgrades within the City defenders who actually have, on paper, for me, a better defensive game week. So I really can see myself actually moving out of Van Dijk as a result, even though he's looked incredible as of late. And I think the Liverpool defense as a whole has looked incredible. Alisson, on the other hand, and even Ederson are definitely good options to think about just to round out the season, because these games are so important. And we know that this Liverpool and City team have shown with the test of time, really, that they can kind of accumulate these clean sheets and clutch up really at the end of the season. So I think moving into at least 4 to 5 Man City and Liverpool players is very justifiable, and making sure that at least I can keep that sort of structure there is good. I'm not too fearful really of City. I think the ownership will be spread along a lot of assets. Some people kind of preemptively went into Sterling by going through the wild card. Some people will be punting on Mahrez if they're free hitting this week. Some people might be transferring Foden, or even have had Foden for a long time now. The same with KDB. But I think because the effective ownership is so spread, I'm not really fearful of how that's going to hurt. And with Laporte and Diaz, that sort of differential where you can go for Diaz this week, I think there's a lot of upside, because it seems like Laporte is the one who is suffering a little bit more from a physical point of view, and that was evident in the Real Madrid game. So if I'm looking for a downgrade to Van Dijk, it would really be for Diaz, and that's really the sort of the case there. With Son Heung-min and Salah, I think both of them are going to be fixtures in my team. Can't really see myself moving into KDB unless something freak happens. Son is a fantastic captain for Game Week 38, and within Game Week 36, really, I would have to say Salah's probably still going to be my most preferred captain for now, with KDB potentially being my second. And so because I can't have kind of space for KDB in my team, I'm just going to go for a Salah captaincy and make a transfer towards Saka, going out of Barnes and then moving towards Diaz. So this is actually going to be my final team for the week. So as discussed, my final team is going to include Diaz and Saka, and I think those are huge upgrades, specifically just because I can go into Saka and I don't have to take a hit. My main concern, as I mentioned with Mount, is that I didn't really want to take a hit for some of those higher upgrades. I think Luis Diaz is the most interesting kind of sort of upgrade to Mount this week, but definitely not a transfer I'd like to make if it included a -4, because I still think there's a chance that Jota could, for example, start the Aston Villa game, or even Firmino, for example, if, let's say, Liverpool were to kind of put a bit of a preference on getting their best sort of starting 11 for the FA Cup game, where some people are even thinking that Robertson, as an example, could be rested versus Aston Villa to allow for that. So that's sort of my thoughts there. I think Saka is such a huge upgrade over Barnes. Diaz, I think, is a little bit of a side grade move, as I mentioned, but I really just like the fact that he should be more fit than Laporte, which kind of is a little bit of a differential compared to the Laporte ownership, which has actually steadily risen in the last few weeks. I feel like Diaz has been neglected, but people, of course, were reminded by him with his great haul in the previous week. And then with Van Dijk, as I said, as a 6.7 option, there was going to be a space and time for him to leave my team. I think Matip, the fact that he's hauled so consistently against Van Dijk within the Premier League, shows that there's a lot of value towards downgrading Van Dijk into Matip, or any sort of Liverpool defender that isn't Trent or Robertson into Matip, really. So that's sort of the benefit there. James, unfortunately, is someone who I kind of feel like I have to stick with. As I said, the Game Week 38 fixture is fantastic for Chelsea. With Rams, I'm hoping for one clean sheet versus Leeds. We've seen that Leeds have actually been very, very good at home. I think the City game was an instance where they could create some counterattacks, but they weren't very decisive, and sometimes they kind of rushed interactions, I would say, specifically because City are so good at closing down chances, even though they play such a high line. And also, I would say, simply, when it comes down to the Leeds sort of team, the quality of the squad means that unless the ball is kind of being controlled by Rafinha, you're probably not going to get the most creative chances being made out of counterattacks. So that's sort of the fear there. And I kind of like the benefit there as a Ramsdale owner. I was thinking about moves towards going for Ederson and Alisson, especially since I have the capacity to go for more City or more Liverpool players, but it just didn't really seem worth it. I kind of want to avoid a hit here. I feel like a lot of people are taking hits because of so much injury impacts and so many people trying to build towards good bench boosts and things like that. This is a good week where I, as someone who doesn't have a chip and plans to play a chip next week, I just feel like I can safely roll. I'm quite happy with the state of my team. Yes, there are one or two kind of half problem points, but I think they will kind of rectify themselves by Game Week 38. Dennis was going to be the big kind of toss-up between him and Nketiah, and I feel like The reason why I've started Nketiah, even though there's a risk that once again Lacazette could join back the team, is just the faith that I think Arteta has shown him in these last few games. The fact that he's played 90 minutes consistently, with Lacazette being so outspoken about leaving the club, I just feel like Nketiah clearly wants to stay and prove himself towards this end of the season. And in this kind of business end, with Arsenal winning the last few games with Nketiah starting for 90 minutes, I just feel like Arteta's not going to shy away from that structure. I feel like Arteta's always the manager where if he's doing well within a set structure, he always tries to repeat that. And I'm hoping that Nketiah is going to be part of that kind of gel there. And I feel like his ceiling, therefore, is higher than Dennis. Whereas Dennis, even though he's actually quite an electric player, I just feel like this Watford team are so timid. They aren't creating enough chances. And over the course of 2 weeks, I just feel like he's just not going to live up to it. Broja, on the other hand, is someone who's not been lively at all. The manager hasn't rated him. I mean, I would love to get him out of my week if possible. But I think reducing the amount of hits, making smart transfers towards the end of the season is good, especially since my biggest chip is going to be hopefully Game Week 37 free hit. Between the captaincy with Son and Salah, I'm actually still undecided. I think I'm leaning much more towards Salah, just because I think with the rest that he got in the recent game and Salah's very kind of storied fitness, and his form and his physical fitness, I would actually suggest that Salah probably plays these 2 games, even though there is a possibility for players to rotate for the FA Cup game. Because, for example, if we look at Mount, we did mention that he could rotate before the Leeds game. I feel like Salah will still play in this Aston Villa game. Maybe he'll get rested if they get towards an early lead, and that might benefit Salah. But I think if you have the chance to get, let's say, 150 minutes of Salah, you're probably just going to take it. And I think I'm quite happy to have just 100% of effective ownership of Son. I still feel like people are going to move away from the Son captaincy option. Effective ownership is still going to benefit me if he does well as a player. So hopefully that's going to be the situation there. And Cancelo and Diaz, nothing really to mention. Similar to kind of Trent, where I think they're just fixtures in your team, and they're so consistent as options with good fixtures as well, that there's not really much to say about them. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I'd love to guys to see you soon, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week ahead.